Hello, everyone. My name is Philip Palumbo. I'm the host of the Palumbo podcast, where we interview some of the most successful and talented market strategists, economists, and founders of major businesses. Today, I have with me Phil Panaro, who's the former founder and CEO of Platinion BCG. And Platinion, it was an arm of BCG that focused on technology execution. So when it comes to technology and the future of technology, Phil Panaro is the guy to speak to. So Phil, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
All right, terrific. So Phil, you and I have spoken numerous times, right, about technology, the future of technology, this revolution that we're seeing in technology. Your thoughts are, because of Web 3.0 and what you see, that NVIDIA's explosive growth that we're seeing, you feel that will continue. And we're saying this not because you're a stock picker or you're looking at some type of technical charts, as many people do, but it's more about the fundamentals of what you see in a technology space and what that means to a company like NVIDIA. So can you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Sure. Again, my opinion is just from a technology perspective in reference to the growth as we transition from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0. So let's define each of the webs before we actually get into the discussion of the growth. Web 1.0 was just a fixed encyclopedia page. It's called the desktop era, which happened in the early 90s when the internet came out. Web 2.0 started in around 2000 with the transactions of goods on the internet, and it's the mobile era. And Web 3.0 is a decentralized web, but more importantly, Web 3.0 is 3D, which means it's much more immersive. So if we look at, NVIDIA right now, what we see is it's very similar to the way Amazon was in 2000. They were at the beginning of the cycle for e-commerce. And we had all these expert stock pickers saying, wasn't even making money at that point in time.
Right.
Why is the multiple so high? This stock is overpriced. But what they really didn't realize, because they were looking at it from a financial analyst standpoint and from a stock picker standpoint, a chart perspective, is that we were only at the beginning of the e-commerce cycle. And that e-commerce essentially would become almost a quarter of the global GNP. So in other words, at that point in time, the penetration for e-commerce was like 1%. It had way more to go. So now you look at it today, and some people in my family had bought Amazon in the early 2000s, and let's just say they bought 2,000. I think they have almost 300,000 from that 2,000 that they bought.
Right.
So NVIDIA is in the same exact position right now. People who are looking at NVIDIA, I see all these smart people on CNBC looking at it from a stock picker, charts, and financial analyst. They don't really understand the technology. We're only at the beginning of the investment cycle for Web 3.0. So essentially where we are with Web 3.0 is this. The overall digital economy is around 20% of the global economy. Both Citibank, Morgan Stanley, and Goldman Sachs, three of the most noted firms, say that between $8 to $12 trillion worth of GNP will be represented by Web 3.0, or what they call the metaverse in a sense, which is almost half of the entire digital economy, which is 20 trillion. So what does that mean for NVIDIA? Right now, we actually have less than $500 billion spent in Web 3.0 and Web 3.0 tools and the economy related to that, we'll just say. What we're talking about is it's supposed to go to 10 trillion. We'll use the midpoint between 8 and 12. So it has a minimum of 10 to 20% more growth ahead. So to say that the stock price is overpriced at 700 is short-sighted and not understanding where we are in the cycle. It's the same as saying Amazon was overpriced in 2000 with no earnings, knowing that we have another 25 years still of that cycle to grow. And
Right.
It's the same thing with the video.
Right. So the key thing, what I love about the way you think about this intuitively is just like you mentioned before, like e-commerce, we're at the beginning stages of that. And you think about e-commerce today, it's a tremendous part of the global economy, right? So if you had that foresight, a company like Amazon is the number one company that you would have invested in to take advantage of that. And one of the key things that I keep talking about as well with this technology revolution that we're starting to see and will see going forward is what's the right business to be in, much like Amazon was right business in e-commerce. So I love the way you frame this and how you study this, and you can see that today we're spending 500 billion in the digital space, which is going to 10 trillion. And if you think about the market share that NVIDIA has today of the 500 billion, right? In terms of chip sales, it's a large amount. And if you're right, and we really do push this to 10 trillion, what does that mean to a company like NVIDIA? So walk us through that, right, as we think about NVIDIA today.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to use general numbers just to keep it really simple. NVIDIA does around 50 billion in revenue. So they're doing 50 billion of what is around 500 billion on Web3, a tenth of it. Web3 is supposed to grow to 10 trillion. So you can do the math on that. And the difference is this is what people don't understand. They're looking at it as a stock. What NVIDIA did was change the way computing is done. The way computing was done, let's say 5 years ago, is they had CPO chips, which essentially was you had the chip do one task. They actually created GPU, which is where they do parallel processing, where they do multitasks, right? So in other words, to equate it to something simple, it's like having one person shoot one gun at one person. Now you have an entire army shooting multiple guns at that one person. So you have the ability to do parallel tasks. What that allows you to do is a lot of things which we call 3D or immersive, which is essentially the metaverse. But more importantly, because the metaverse is very much tied to social media and VR, the real money is in the digital twin aspect of it. Essentially, what we see in the economy today is buildings, just so you know, are planned and built physically. In the future, there will be a digital first strategy, which you build the building on a digital model, and then you build it physically. And by doing that, what you do is you allow that building to what they call move from a smart building to a cognitive building, where you build AI within it once you actually have the digital twins as a foundation. So why do we think this is better? The following. I'm sure everybody had a flip phone at one point in time. Now nobody has a flip phone. Do you know why? Because a smartphone is better technology.
Right.
It's that simple. So with NVIDIA, doing things in multitask versus a single task is better. And also doing things where you can do them in 3D, where you can actually build the models and embed AI in the models, is a way better thing to run the building. So say you're running a real estate building, you can operate and maintain that building literally right off your phone. The building gets smarter and smarter and smarter. It becomes learning because you're building AI into the digital twin platform. So the bottom line is it's a better way to do things and run things. So what does that mean in English? That means in English that all the cities will be transforming from Web 2 to Web 3 to manage and operate their buildings. All companies that have factories will move towards Web 3. BMW already does it. BMW no longer builds their factories physically. They actually build it as a digital twin model to understand what equipment they do. They run the simulation within that factory. They can find out how many people they need. They even train their robots in that digital twin factory. Then they build the physical factory. So the way cities are going to be built, the way factories are going to be built and run, it's all going to be through digital twins. And guess who powers all of that? NVIDIA.
It's really tremendous when you think about it, the technology, like as you said, right? Because what it does for any of these owners of these buildings, as an example, is it creates tremendous efficiency, which saves money to the bottom line. And that's a lot about what this technology, I believe, it's going to do for, as we think about business owners and people who own real estate and everything you're talking about now. So that's the pure benefit of the technology and why people will incorporate it. Now, Phil, do you think, I don't know if you have an answer to this, but is this costly? Let's say, for example, I own 4 or 5 huge real estate buildings and I want to incorporate this technology, right? Is it going to be costly in your view?
No, it's actually not costly. And basically, the cost is really relevant to the age of the building. So when you have new construction, it's very easy to put Wi-Fi in the building. Or if you have a building that's more modern within the last 10 years, it's very simple to put sensors on the equipment and to have Wi-Fi connection. So it doesn't even matter the size of the building, it matters more the age. Once you actually have those sensors in a building, just like you have a meter on outside your house, you actually have a meter on how to operate and run the entire building. But more importantly, it gets smarter and smarter and smarter because it's embodied AI. So let's talk about the differential on that. Everybody talks about ChatGPT and how it's a game changer. Those people have very limited understanding of AI because you have to actually ask ChatGPT a question, or you have to write it a question, and it gives you an answer. The future of AI is embodied AI. Embodied AI means that it's actually in it and it knows what you want to do, predictive AI, and it does it before you even ask.
Right.
So once you actually have a digital twin as a foundation, it becomes embodied AI and it gets smarter and smarter and smarter. So all of the construction that's being done, all of the factories that are being built, all of the hotels that need to be operated, the condos, everyone is going to choose a foundation with a digital twin platform because it allows you to not only have a smart building, but to have a cognitive building, which will drive out operations and maintenance costs and actually run more efficiently. So what I'm trying to say is this, really, really simply. Just like we had a flip phone and we moved to a smartphone because it's better technology, what you're going to see is as the market becomes more aware of what this technology can do for you, you're going to see everybody's going to be transitioning to NVIDIA chips. There's alternatives too, but they're the leader. And this is the way everything is going to be done. Construction is going to be built with digital twins. Buildings are going to be operated and maintained with digital twins. Factories are going to be run first with a digital twin and then operated as such. So the bottom line is, what is the value of all the infrastructure? And I want to give you one specific example that really sets the tone. In the world today, 5 cities have only been built or leveraged via digital twins as a foundation. They're saying by 2025, 2026, 500 cities will be built using digital twins. What does that mean? That means that all real estate, construction, operation, and maintenance is going to be done with a Web3 foundation and digital twins. And you want to know why? Because it's efficient, you'll save money, and the building will be better.
Absolutely.
So the World Economic Forum, I just wrote an article for the World Economic Forum. They have a focus on what they call smart city transformation. And I met with them and I told them that's like the horse and buggy. That's Web 2.0. You need to have cognitive city transformation. So the World Economic Forum right now is studying whether to move their overall initiative from smart city to cognitive city, because that's the future. And the bottom line is NVIDIA powers all of this.
So Phil, just real quick on the ChatGPT, right? So obviously that's ChatGPT is something that we could all touch and feel right now. And that's why many of us are saying it's a game changer, right? But you're seeing things from a different light in terms of the embodied AI. So today, the embodied AI, there's nothing that we can see and feel yet regarding embodied AI, correct?
So no, if you go into a Tesla car, that would be embodied AI because it learns your driving habits. And essentially, after a while, all you need to do is guide it.
Right.
So you don't need to actually ask it or tell it anything as much as it knows what you want to do. So that's the difference between ChatGPT and where you have to ask it and it gives you an answer, and embodied AI where it gets smarter and smarter and smarter and it actually does it by itself.
Right.
So there actually are examples of what they call embodied AI and what they call cognitive, where the thing learns and it gets smarter and smarter. In fact, they have a lot of these things in the military right now.
Right. So the last thing I just want to say as it relates to, and as I think about, right, NVIDIA, who's the leader in this space. So again, just to summarize what you just said is, e-commerce, what e-commerce was back in 2000 is what this whole movement was seeing in this digital world with NVIDIA. We're just in the beginning stages. And a lot of it is because of the spend that we're going to see in this world that could be as much as $12 trillion, right? So if you think about the market share that NVIDIA has today, in terms of chip sales, it's somewhere north of 50%. In terms of the chips that everybody wants right now, the concern people would say, well, Phil, and even me too, well, somebody's going to come in and make these chips just as good as NVIDIA or better. And I would say, yeah, just like Tesla with electrical vehicles, that there are many companies that came up now and making EV, and that's going to take some market share away from Tesla. But if the EV market doubles and triples and quadruples from here, even if Tesla loses some market share, they're going to still sell millions of cars. Same thing with NVIDIA chips. So even if they lose a little bit of market share because players that are out there, but if we go to 10 trillion in spend, they're still going to make a fortune, is how I would look at it. Does that make sense to you?
So just like Amazon was in the beginning innings of the e-commerce revolution, and people couldn't understand the stock price and why it was growing. And remember, Amazon was making no money at that time. NVIDIA is making margins of 50% now.
Yes.
So they were in the first or second inning. Look at how much they've gone since that time as that market matured for e-commerce. What I'm saying is for Web 3.0, essentially we're in the first inning. People are barely even aware of it. And what we're going to see is another 8 more innings. So to think the stock price is too high today, basically you don't understand technology, because we're only in the first inning. We have another 8 more innings to go. And in terms of competition, just so you're aware, NVIDIA, their only other competitor that's still around, because there was other people, there was like almost 100 companies that did kind of what they did. There's only one left, AMD.
Right.
Just from that time where it initiated.
Right.
So what they do is they actually don't manufacture the chips. You should just be aware of that. They actually design and put the intelligence in the chips. And just so you know, they actually use their chips to design the future chips.
Right.
That's how smart they are. So it's really the intelligence. And what you should be aware of is investment banks for 3 years put zero value on that for them, for NVIDIA. Now people are only beginning to understand what that means in that intelligence. So sure, you can make chips. In fact, they outsourced them to Taiwan. Now they're trying to build them in the US. But it's the intelligence that go into that that's going to be very, very hard to catch up to. But I think the bigger point is there's a huge pie out there. And even if they just get a portion of the pie, they're going to be growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, I would not be surprised if they were at 5,000 by 2030.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
or more.
Yep,
that's a conservative number.
That's a big call. There's going to be volatility to get there, but that's a big call. So Phil, last word on this with you.
Last word on this is that the future is Web 3.0. We're not going to go from 2 to 1, and Web 3.0 is going to grow from less than 500 billion to 10 trillion at a minimum, and they're going to get the majority of the work that powers that whole economy. So you have a massive opportunity. All the cities, all the infrastructure around the world has only started to look at this.
Excellent, Phil. This is terrific. You and I, every time we talk, we always like to take the complicated and make it simple. And I think it's pretty simple for people to understand. This is a tremendous movement. There's going to be a lot of money thrown at this digital revolution that we're going to see. NVIDIA is a huge player in this space. So I think this is really helpful for people that are thinking about this from an investment standpoint. So I appreciate your time today, Phil, and your feedback as always, and your perspective and your insights, because this is who you are. This is the world you operate in. So I have a lot of confidence in what you're saying, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. We're only at the beginning.
Sounds good, Phil. Thank you very much.
Thank you.